He had the body of a god, the touch of an artist, and the mind of a man at war with himself. This is the most complicated story in modern football. Let me tell you something that almost nobody in football wants to admit out loud. There was a version of Mario Balotelli that could have been the most complete center forward of his generation. Stronger than Didier Drogba, more technically gifted than Fernando Torres at his peak, more physically imposing than Zlatan Ibrahimovic when it mattered most. A player who, at his absolute best, made defenders genuinely afraid to stand in front of him. And that player, that version of Balotelli, appeared in flashes. Beautiful, devastating, unforgettable flashes. And then, just as quickly as he arrived, he vanished, replaced by headlines, controversies, and the slow, painful spectacle of a generational talent dissolving in real time. The question nobody has ever fully answered is, why? Was it his fault? Was it the system that failed him? Was it racism, bad management, bad luck, bad decisions, or some impossible combination of all of them? Today, we are going to go all the way in, because this story is not what most people think it is. Mario Balotelli was born in Palermo in August 1990, the third child of Ghanaian immigrants Thomas and Rose Barwa. He was a sick baby, seriously ill in his first years of life, requiring repeated hospitalization. His parents, struggling financially and unable to give him the care he needed, made the agonizing decision to have him fostered. At age 2, Mario went to live with the Balotelli family in Bagnolo Mella, near Brescia. Francesco and Silvia Balotelli raised him as their own. He took their surname. He grew up Italian in every way that mattered: language, culture, football club, identity. And yet Italy spent the next 2 decades reminding him, loudly, violently, relentlessly, that a black man with an Italian passport would never quite belong. Monkey chants at stadiums, racist abuse from the stands, newspaper articles that reduced him to a caricature before he was old enough to vote. This is not background detail. This is the foundation of everything that followed. To understand why Balotelli became who he became, you have to understand that he entered professional football already carrying something that no young man should have to carry: the exhausting, daily task of fighting for the right to simply exist in the space he had earned. At 16, Balotelli was already training with Inter Milan's first team. Roberto Mancini, who would later become one of the most important figures in his life, saw something in him that made him insist on fast-tracking his development. By 17, he was making Serie A appearances. By 18, he was a European champion with Inter's youth side and already the subject of transfer interest from clubs across the continent. His physical profile was almost unfair. At 6'2", with the balance and close control of a much smaller player, he combined the attributes that coaches spend careers searching for and almost never find in the same person. He could hold up the ball with his back to goal like a wall. He could spin and accelerate past defenders in tight spaces. He could finish with either foot, with his head, from distance, from close range, under pressure, in big moments. The goal against Germany at Euro 2012, both of them scored in a semi-final, in front of a watching world, remains one of the most complete individual forward performances in the history of major international tournaments. He was unstoppable. He was immense. He looked, for 90 minutes, like the player he was always supposed to become permanently. That is the version of Balotelli that haunts this story. Not the headlines, not the fireworks in the bathroom, not the training ground incidents. The player who, when the conditions were right, was genuinely one of the best strikers on the planet. When Roberto Mancini brought him to Manchester City in 2010, it felt like the perfect environment. A manager who knew him, a club with ambition and resources, a city that, by English standards, had seen enough to not be easily shocked. What followed was 2 of the most entertaining, maddening, brilliantly unpredictable seasons in Premier League history, and they centered almost entirely on one man. He scored crucial goals. He celebrated them in ways nobody had ever seen. He was sent off. He accidentally set fire to his own house with a firework. He handed out £1,000 in cash to a homeless man on the streets of Manchester because it seemed like the right thing to do. He was photographed wearing a training bib that simply read, in capital letters, "Why always me?" That bib, that single question, it might be the most honest thing any footballer has ever said about their own public life. Because here is the thing that the English press never quite managed to engage with honestly. Balotelli was not wrong to ask. The scrutiny he faced was not proportionate to his behavior. Other players made mistakes, serious ones, and were given rehabilitation arcs, second chances, sympathetic profiles. Balotelli made mistakes and was handed a permanent identity. Pause. He was the bad boy, the problem player, the wasted talent. And once that label was attached, almost nothing he did on the pitch was reported without the lens of that narrative sitting over it. He still won the Premier League with City in 2012. He still scored the goal against Queen's Park Rangers that is remembered as one of the defining moments of that title race. But by the time he left for AC Milan in 2013, the conversation was already more about what he hadn't become than what he actually was. The summer of 2014 should have been a reset. Liverpool, under Brendan Rodgers, paid around £16 million to bring him back to England. Luis Suarez had just left. The club needed a striker. Balotelli, freshly motivated after a reasonable season in Milan, seemed like a calculated gamble worth taking. It was, by almost any measure, the worst year of his professional life. One Premier League goal all season. A player who had scored twice in a World Cup semi-final 18 months earlier managed a single league goal across an entire English top-flight campaign. The mismatch between expectation and reality was so vast, it bordered on surreal. What happened? The honest answer is that several things happened simultaneously, and their combination was catastrophic. Rodgers' system did not suit him. The relationship between manager and player never developed. Liverpool's form collapsed around him. He was isolated in attack without the service he needed. And crucially, his confidence, that particular brand of aggressive self-belief that had always been both his fuel and his armor, began to crack in a way that was visible from the stands. A footballer's confidence is a strange and fragile thing. When it breaks, everything breaks with it. The touch becomes heavy, the decisions slow. The goals that once came naturally start to feel like problems to be solved rather than instincts to be followed. By the time Liverpool released him, the narrative had calcified into something close to irreversible. He was a problem. He was difficult. He was finished at the highest level. The press had decided, and the press rarely undecides. Here is where the story demands a moment of genuine honesty. Mario Balotelli spent his entire career in a sport that had not yet developed the language, the structures, or the moral courage to properly protect black players from racial abuse. He was subjected to monkey chants at grounds across Europe. He was the target of abuse on social media at a scale that was, by any reasonable measure, a public health crisis that football's governing bodies treated as a minor inconvenience. And he responded to that abuse with anger, with provocation, with behavior that was sometimes erratic, sometimes self-destructive, sometimes deliberately transgressive. And the football world, the press, the pundits, the fans who considered themselves neutral observers, looked at that anger and diagnosed it as a character flaw rather than a consequence. The anger of a black man who grew up being told he did not belong, who spent his career being abused in stadiums, who watched governing bodies issue fine after fine after fine while the abuse continued. That anger was never contextualized. It was simply filed under difficult personality and used to explain away his failures. This is not to absolve every bad decision Balotelli made. He made many. Some of them genuinely cost him. But the full story cannot be told without acknowledging that he was operating in an environment that was, in measurable and documented ways, actively hostile to him, and that the hostility was racial before it was anything else. After Liverpool, Balotelli drifted. AC Milan again, briefly, Nice in France, where he rediscovered something resembling form and scored goals that reminded older fans of what the fuss had once been about. Marseille, Monza, a career that moved progressively away from the lights he had once played under. He is still playing, at the time of writing, at a level far below the one his talent warranted. And there is something genuinely melancholy about that, not in a sentimental way, but in the specific, concrete way of watching a resource that could have illuminated something be left in the dark. Think about the counterfactual. A Balotelli who grew up in a country and a sport that handled race with any degree of seriousness. A Balotelli who had a manager, from the very beginning, who understood how to build a protective environment around an emotionally complex young man. A Balotelli who played in an era where the conversation about mental health in football was not considered weakness or excuse. That Balotelli might have been one of the greatest strikers the game has ever seen. The physical tools were there. The technical ability was there. The moments of evidence, 2012 Euro, certain performances at City, certain games at Nice, are there in the archive for anyone who wants to look. In an interview in 2022, Balotelli was asked if he had any regrets about his career. He paused for a long time. Silence. And then he said something that stopped the interviewer cold. He said he regretted the things he could not control more than the things he could. He regretted the racism he absorbed. He regretted that football was not ready for who he actually was. He regretted that the conversation about what he went through only started happening, properly, with any real honesty, years after it might have made a difference to him. He did not say he was a perfect person. He did not excuse his mistakes. He simply said that the story people told about him was never quite the true one. And here's the thing that should make every football fan pause. He was right. The story people told about Mario Balotelli was never quite the true one. We watched a generational talent and called it a wasted career. We watched a man absorbing racial abuse at industrial scale and called it a bad attitude. We watched someone fighting every single day for the right to belong in the sport he loved, and we wrote columns about his diet and his haircut. Why did Mario Balotelli never reach his potential? Because the game he played in was not yet capable of allowing him to. And the saddest part of that sentence is that it is not entirely in the past tense. We are still working on it. If this story made you feel something, it should have. Consider what other careers in football deserve this same level of honesty. The archive is full of players we misread. Drop your thoughts below.